Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About podcast. And today we're talking about everything leadership with Dr. Dorothy, or Dr. D, as you like to be called. Welcome, Dorothy.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, awesome. So we met a few weeks ago and really inspired by your journey and through life. So let's start there, really, because of your journey through Boston to the Caribbean and Connecticut. That's
Exactly.
inspiring itself. So let's start there.
Oh, let's do that. Yeah, that's a very quick run through of that. I was originally raised from birth in an orphanage until I
Mm,
was 3, and then later adopted by an Irish alcoholic policeman and raised in the housing projects of South Boston. So I grew up in the inner city of Boston and in a very Irish Catholic ghetto, if you will, and it was quite an adventure. And
I can imagine.
when I wanted to get out, it was very a lot of gangs and a lot of different situations that were typical of that kind of environment. And when I wanted out, I couldn't go to nursing school because my high school was an unaccredited inner city high school. So no nursing schools were available. And I wanted to do more than I wanted to have an impact. Even as a teenager, I wanted to do something to make this world a better place and to support
Mm,
those who were like the folks in the projects, folks who were just kept down, kept much smaller than they were called to be. And I wanted to do something to support that population rising above and recognizing that their life is whatever they choose to make it. And so what ended up happening was I became a Catholic nun in order to do something greater, not realizing that my desire to be a social worker, you needed to go to college. I had never met a woman who had never been to college, but I didn't realize you needed college, but became a Catholic nun. And within religious life, I was sent to college in spite of my high school. And once you have a BA, nobody cares. Then your
mm.
master's and a PhD is just lots of money and lots of time. And I did that on my own. And leaving religious life, I decided that to go back and checked in with all of my friends who either were on welfare and still in the projects if they were alive or in prison, and I didn't fit in. So I decided that I would move to Manhattan in New York City and become an international airline stewardess. So I
Okay.
flew over 1,000,000 miles around the world and really loved the idea of travel. And eventually got married and moved to Connecticut and had 2 little ones. After 15 years later, I was divorced and needed to support my children. So I got my master's, opened up a private practice as a psychotherapist, and I was blessed. I spoke to every women's group, church group, synagogue, every place that would let me in to speak when I was starting to let the world know I was out here as a therapist.
Mm.
And I was blessed within 3 months. I had a 6 month waiting list that lasted over 20 years. And so I was seeing 42 patients a week. About 3 years into my practice, I noticed that there was certain personalities showing up with the same disease, that this kind of person, folks with this personality was showing up with prostate cancer or breast cancer or autoimmune disorders. And it intrigued me. And most of my friends who were in medicine said it's coincidental, which I knew it wasn't coincidental.
Mm.
And so I went and studied 9 modalities of integrative healthcare to really, I was hungry to learn what is this really about because there's something here that we don't understand. And 5 of the modalities were in Eastern medicine, which opened up my world to so many other ways to approaching illness. And
Mhm.
without one medicine that's prescribed to everybody with that same disease, it's really looking at what's the psychospiritual elements of this disease and what's that about. And so I integrated it all, took the best of what I thought was the best of all of the modalities I studied, combined it with what I learned as a therapist, and created my own modality. And
Okay, so 10th almost.
yeah, yeah. And so what ended up happening was that folks on my waiting list who knew I did this because I brought a massage table into my office, which
Okay.
psychologists are not supposed to do. So I lost malpractice insurance for a number of years because I broke all the rules, all the of things you don't do when you're here. And in doing that, ended up having these folks say, teach us what you know, teach us what you know while we're waiting to work with you in a one-to-one.
Mm.
So I began a long story short, I began a school that ended up becoming a 4-year program in the method of energy medicine I created. And I got my doctorate and I did a doctoral dissertation on the psychospiritual causes of physical disease and disorders. And that's what I taught for 19 years to students who were physicians, nurses, occupational therapists, and so forth. In this little program, in addition to seeing 42 patients a week as a psychologist, and then as a mom, a single mom raising two
Wow.
kids and attending soccer games and doing all those things and spaghetti dinners at the school and all those things moms and dads do when you have little ones in school and doing all of that. I had my practice, then I opened up the school, which was just going to be this little thing on the side that I would do. And it ended up that I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of folks come through my school. It got way too big for me, so I ended up eventually having 63 positions on my payroll, and
Mm,
I had
that's
about
a
a
team.
$1,000,000 payroll here with 7 people working full time, and then I had numerous 1099s working for my company, and we were blessed, and they were the 3rd and 4th year students required to do medical internships, and they came in from around the country in Canada and Australia and different places to study with me, and they were able to do medical internships where they were. So I had to hire people to oversee all of these individual medical internships. And so these preceptors were working with the hospitals doing contracts and so forth. So this little company became this much bigger company.
Mm,
And because my work was so successful in working with various diseases, because I had created procedures, protocols to work with different diseases, hospitals were asking to give me grant funding. So I opened up a nonprofit so that they could give grant funding. It's better tax purpose wise to have a nonprofit, at least in this country, you know. So before you knew it, this little private practice I had became this multiple business organization I was running. And you never know what your future holds. You
right.
know, when you follow your heart, when you follow your passion, and it's not even like, gee, what do I want to do next? You feel called to something that's next, and you follow that calling, you become so much more than you thought you could become. Your business becomes so much more than you thought it could become. And your life just keeps evolving and changing. And as you transition, your businesses transition. As they transition, you have to transition to keep up with them. And it
Yeah.
becomes this pattern. And so that's what I was doing. And eventually, my youngest left for Cornell University, which is up near Canada and way up upstate New York, and drove him up, dropped him off, and came home. And whoa, here I am, a kid from the housing projects. And I've got 3 businesses. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? And realized that theoretically I was highly successful, but I was unhappy at the same time. And I sat in this great big home, sipping a glass of wine and thinking, this is my life now.
Mm,
And I thought, and I knew that if I don't do something that fed my soul, I would become physically ill. And I remembered a dream many years before living in the Caribbean. So before my glass of wine was done, I called American Airlines, said, get me a one-way ticket to Anguilla in the British
wow.
West
One way.
Indies. And then I called an agent, put my house on the market, notified my office that I was going to be leaving the country in 3 weeks. I was moving to the Caribbean. And I did that. I lived there for 10 years, flying back to America every couple of months because my classes met all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, twice, every 2 months. And so I'd come back up here, speak, meet with my team. I'd be up here for about a week, meet with my team. And the first weekend would be the first and third year. The second weekend was the second and fourth year students. And then that was till Sunday at 6. And Monday morning at 6, I was on a plane heading back to Anguilla for two
Mm,
months until I came back to America for 10 days every 2 months. And eventually, after 10 years, was notified by one of my students who was the head of gerontology and energy medicine at UConn, asking if I would come back to the States. They had received a multi-million-dollar frontier medicine grant, which is what the
mm,
National Institutes of Health calls energy medicine. At least at that time it did. And asked if I would come back to the States and be on the board. And I became co-chair of the advisory board of this multi-million-dollar grant overseeing energy medicine research across the country. And I became a clinical instructor at UConn Medical School
mhm.
and received grant funding from the National Institutes of Health to research my work. So it became one of those, do I want to stay? I loved Anguilla. I love swimming every day. I love
I was going
dancing
to say,
every
how
day.
could you
I
not love
loved
that?
a very different lifestyle that was just so different from my reality here. But at the same time, following my passion,
Mm,
this work and bringing this work to people to know that their health was in their hands. I very much wanted to do that, even more than I wanted to dance every night and swim every day in the Caribbean
mm,
Sea. And so I came back to America. And in coming back, realized our culture had changed dramatically,
mhm.
that there was far more a sense of entitlement that never existed when I lived here previously. And I was very offended by that. Having lived in a country where we had one paved road, we had 6,000 people. The whole country was 32 square miles.
Mm,
And so coming back to America, where we had stores that were the equivalent of 10 of the stores on Anguilla. Our local Stop and Shop was massive and little stores were the size of one room. So it was a very different adjustment being back here in the States. But I came back and I ended up closing the school and closing the nonprofit, seeing very few. Instead of 42 patients, I maybe saw 5 or 10 patients a week and decided to become a leadership coach because I recognized that so few people in leadership effectively knew how to lead. They were
mm,
working so hard to be what they thought a leader looked like. They were
mm,
working so hard to be this perfect image of something that had nothing to do with who they are.
mm.
And they were becoming physically, emotionally, and spiritually ill, which is where, when I was meeting heads of these companies, there was drugs or alcohol or numerous affairs. They were on their second, third, fourth wife. There was all kinds of unhappiness, all kinds of undue stress because of a misunderstanding by the organization as well as by them as to what it meant to be a leader.
Yes, because often people are promoted into leadership without proper training. You work up as an expert to a manager, and then suddenly you're a leader, and it's a very different skill,
And
isn't it?
it's like, how do I do this? How do I do this? I think that's what it's supposed to look like. I'll become that person. You
Mm,
can't become that person. You betray who you are when you attempt to do that. And
mm.
so,
And I love one of your sayings in one of your recent blogs around who do you want to be when you show up? Like you said,
right.
you're in this leadership,
Yeah.
in leadership position. So talk more about that in terms of the control that you need to have.
When we move into leadership positions, and it doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur with less than 100 people or a small business, when you know who you are,
Mm,
you know your strengths, you know your limitations, you know what you bring to the table, and you also know who you want to be. You are much more aware of your spiritual purpose. And I believe we all have a purpose here in life. You're aware of that difference you can make in the world to make it a better place. You're
mm,
called to something that feeds you, that makes you excited to get up, that makes you excited to be you. And when that feeds you and you're excited, you start to become your best version of you.
mm,
And with that, when you can go into the office and call the people who work with you, I don't care if it's vendors or clients or employees, and you call them to recognize your vision, to the impact you want to have, they get invested in your vision with you. And the best customers are the ones who believe in what you're doing. The best
mm.
employees are those who don't come to work with you because you pay them. They come to work with you because what you're doing inspires them. And
That
it
shared
becomes
goal.
their dream, it becomes their vision. And
Mm,
so now you may be the leader, but you're leading all of these people as they are living their vision for how they can make the world a better place.
mm.
And it becomes far more real, far more authentic, and far more powerful. And
Oh,
and that's where transformation comes from, your own as well as your company's.
yes, and I find that sometimes those vision goals within bigger corporations are fed
Right.
down to leaders to execute, and the leaders are then expected to deliver that with their teams. So it's creating questions with them, asking their feedback, saying, "Hey, we need to move towards this goal. What do you think?" Getting their input. So to your point, they're getting back to that, creating that alignment around a goal.
Always, always. When I had my companies, I've closed most of them now. But when I had my bigger company with all of these positions, and I had my anywhere from 7 to 9, depending on staff members, full paid staff members, every Wednesday morning we would meet for about
Mm,
2 hours. And I would say to each of them, okay, this is the agenda for today. But before we start, what's going on with everybody? Any issues in the team we need to talk about? Anything in your particular position you need to talk about? Any dreams you have that are not being mentioned here or
love
actualized
that.
here? What can we
Yeah.
do with it? And
Yes.
it may be half an hour, it may be 2 minutes, went into all of that. And now I would say, okay, these are the 3 points. What are your ideas on these? Because it'd be something, maybe a program I was going to do or an open house we were going to have. What are your thoughts?
Mm,
And everybody knew ultimately it was my decision. But if everybody gave me their feedback, what you discover quickly is that with everybody giving perspectives, I was able to see things from a way I never would have seen on my own,
Yes.
right?
And plus everyone has a different alignment to that goal because they might
Right.
think, well, I'm really looking forward to the project delivery, getting this project done. I'm really looking
Right.
forward to meeting the people involved. I'm really looking forward to the marketing. What's your attraction to this goal? And then let's build on that,
Right.
not saying
And
this
they
is the one
they
goal.
were a part of every single thing that was actualized. They had input as to how we ran this open house. They had input as
Mm,
to how we ran that expo we were going to be a part of, and because they were in it, they were that much more invested in it.
yes.
And it was a team approach. And yes, ultimately I made the decisions. I was responsible financially. I was responsible to maintain their positions to make this a success. So everybody had a job.
Mm,
But it was also we were in it together.
yeah.
We
And
were in
that's
this together.
so, so important this day because things are changing so fast. A lot of my workshops and speaking, the question I often get is, how do we keep up with the pace of change? My space is around the technology, enabling companies to deliver
Yeah.
uh, scale and growth, typically through reporting. And the technology is coming at us so fast and hard, and people are feeling left behind. And that also goes into another quote that you mentioned around transition is an opportunity. So talk to me more about that and how people can reframe change as leaders.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Change can be terrifying for some folks.
Yeah.
But if you're a leader in business, you better work hard to change your perspective, or else it's going to be a very difficult position for you. Because in spite of you, the culture changes, needs change, people's wants change. And so you have to keep changing and transitioning in your business. And
Mm,
as you change things, you need to grow to become comfortable with that change and then become a leader of the change. So there are expectations on the leaders to look at transition. We can steer at it as a period of letting go of the past. And it is some of that. We don't let go of all the past. The past help transforms us into the person we are today. So we're
mm,
never truly fully letting go of the past. However, every time you're called to change or transition, you're called to expand your worldview. You're called to expand how you see yourself living your mission, you're living your vision. You're called to see yourself in a bigger way with a bigger, more powerful team. It doesn't
mm.
always mean more numbers of employees or 1099s, however your company is run. But what it does mean is that you keep expanding your vision of what's possible. You
Yes.
keep
Yep.
expanding your vision of what you're capable of.
Mm. I know, and for well, like you, I've moved countries where as well from the UK to Canada. Also bought real estate, rental properties, and people often say, "Well, how do you do that?" Or why? It's scary for me to buy my first house to invest in as a rental property. But then, like you say, once you do it once, you can repeat that. You can do it again and again.
Right.
And we didn't know how to do that. We didn't know how to move countries like you probably as well. It's something you've just got to embrace and know that you will figure it out. We've got this
And
ultimately.
that's the trick. You just said it. Know you'll figure it out.
Mm,
When you absolutely believe in yourself, you know you'll figure it out. When I landed at Wall Lake Airport in Anguilla, I had 3 suitcases. I landed and I said to somebody who greeted me, some man came over and said hi and did his shtick as they can do.
yeah.
And I said, "Where do you find a place to live?" And he said, "You call Ping." And I said, "How do I call Ping? I don't have a phone here for Anguilla."
Mm,
And he said, "Use mine." We called Ping. Ping came down and I moved into a villa he owned for about 3 weeks while we drove every day through the bush trying to find a house that I could live in. And knowing we're going to find something. This is going to work out. This isn't if I ran into difficulty over in home. This is going to work out. That's the end of the story. And we did it. And I found a place to live. And 10 years later, was still there.
mm,
So, and it's up here, you have a difficulty in the business. If you know that this is what you're here to do, that first obstacle isn't permission to stop. That first obstacle is just a need to stop and look at what's going on. Frequently, just walk around it, learn from it, walk around it, and just keep on going.
yeah.
I don't fight the difficulties I run into. I look at what they are. What can I learn from it? Now let me walk around it and then just keep on going and
Mm,
keep growing and expanding. It may mean I have to shift a thought. I have to shift how I see something. Or it may be that I need to step back and rethink how I'm going to approach the same thing.
Mm,
but what does it mean for me? And what
or
does it mean for my vision? It's not permission to stop or
yes.
quit.
Or asking other people as well. A spin on the I'll figure this out is we'll figure this out, and that may not be a specific team around me right now. That will be just
Oh, yeah.
if I can't figure it out, I'll ask someone like you did with Ping.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
asking someone, oh, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, or I'm not sure about this. Any ideas? Some will be great, some won't
right.
be, but either way, to your point, you'll move forward.
And you learn with experience who to ask. You
Yes.
don't ask somebody who's never owned a business, what should be the
Mm,
next step in your business. You learn not to ask somebody who knows everything is going
yes.
to fail what you should do next. You
Yes.
learn to ask somebody who follows dreams, who believes in the impossible.
Mm,
How do we do this? Because they've already confronted it, maybe not in the same kind of business, but in business, they've already confronted these difficulties. And
yes.
so you become very discerning as to where you go for help.
Yes. And
Too many people who know nothing about what you're doing are willing to give you advice.
yes. Oh, this is so, so important is don't ask advice from someone who's not doing what you want to do.
Right.
And it's interesting as I was doing some research for our discussion as well, I was looking up how building on the uncertainty and transition is an opportunity. There's a lot of acronyms around how bad things can happen. So FUD, for example, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I then got into VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which is adventure, leadership, interconnected, vibrant, and empowerment.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
figured, okay, let's start using enough fun. Let's start using alive or something similar because it's amazing we don't have acronyms for opportunity and optimism.
Doesn't that just amaze you that
Yeah.
the negativity doesn't take you forward?
Mm,
The negativity keeps you stuck. When you can look at I'm a born optimist. So to me, it's when you can reframe something to the positive. You never feel as if the world's against you. You never feel as if this is impossible.
mm,
You may feel as if I've got to step back a moment and I may need to bring in some more people, or I may need to get an advisory board, or I may need to get an accountability partner, whatever it
mm,
is. What do I need next? And
yes.
how do I network to get the message out there that I exist, that my company exists, that my service exists? What do I do? And that's asking the right people, the right questions,
Mm,
and knowing nothing is impossible if you truly want it.
right.
Nothing, and I truly believe that nothing is impossible if you truly want it.
Mm,
And what's if it's what you're meant to do, everything you already need is there. You just
mm,
have to tap into it. And that means what is your thinking process? If I know I'm a victim and I have to struggle, it's going to be a difficult business. All
it
right. If
yes.
I know that things happen, miracles happen every day, and I wake up with that attitude, it doesn't matter what I'm confronted during the day. I may get a moment of
Mm,
being annoyed, you know, but this too shall pass. And then
yes.
laugh at the fact, I've had clients who, heads of major hospitals, say to me, I've never done a thing right in my life. And I'll say, okay, we
What
could believe that, or we could say you're having a bad day. Let's go with it's a bad day because you did not reach here by doing everything wrong since you've been 5 or 6 years of age. So
mm,
clearly, you know what on earth you're doing. What happened today? Because today's where the difficulty came. Your
yep.
life has not been a waste, but we all have those moments when we can say, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, or I don't know anything about anything. It's like, okay, take a deep breath,
Yep.
go get some
Gra-
water, come on
gratitude.
back. Yeah, change the energy and come on back to reality. Because the reality
Mm,
is, you do know what you're doing, or you wouldn't have come this far. You may be
and how
confused.
and asking ourselves how can we make tomorrow better today might have been a
Right.
bad day, sometimes things just happen, it's just the way it is, but how can tomorrow go better, and that reflection.
Yeah,
And I'm big and building on that as well, I'm a big fan of the average of the 5 people you hang around with. That's the level of optimism or ambition or work that you're involved
correct.
in, and it's not always easy to pick the 5 that you're being around, but you can influence it. Even watching YouTube videos of type of people you want to be around will start to influence your attitude and outlook on life as well.
Right. And I truly believe in the practice of mindfulness as well. And
Mm,
for me, to stop for a moment and look within. But
right,
also, there is, I don't know how you could be a leader unless you live from the 30,000-foot view.
right.
when you get so close to the details, you can get lost in them. You've lost sight of where you're going. You've lost sight of
Mm.
who you are. And that may mean I'm going to leave the office right now and I'm going to go in the kitchen and I'm going to call a girlfriend and talk about her life, talk about her kids, talk about anything under the sun other than business.
Mhm.
And if I take 20 minutes getting caught up in stuff that has nothing to do with business, I make a cup of tea, then I come back, I'm in a completely different mindset
Yep.
than I was in when I was here knowing life stinks and I've got to deal with crazy people or crazy situations, right?
Yes.
I
Just
come
stepping
back,
away from the situation.
right, completely take a break.
Mm.
And so I think an important part of self-awareness is what gives you permission to take a break
Mm.
and get a complete shift in mindset. You know,
Yeah.
I know for me, everybody's different. The movie Mamma Mia, I can
Okay.
go put that on for 10 minutes and I'm just singing and sitting in my chair, dancing away, having a good time. And I just needed 10 minutes in the middle of the day. And it's like, okay, I'm done. I can go back in the office now. I have a completely different sense of me and of
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, there's no right movie, there's no right song, there's no right book. Whatever it is for you, learn it. That's part of mindfulness. What
Yeah,
works for
for me,
you?
it's 80s UK metal bands. I like to listen to Iron Maiden or something like that, the lighter side of it, and just
See?
just lose myself for a bit and then back into it.
And that would do nothing for me. So it's like,
Right.
what works for you? And that, to me, that's what makes life an adventure.
Mm.
Because I truly see this as a fun adventure of spiritual discovery of who am I? What is the world about? And every new experience expands my sense of the world and my sense of me and how I fit in it. And
Yeah.
so looking for those adventures, looking for those experiences, but also understanding we're human and I'm
Mm.
gonna have those moments when I don't know nothing about nothing. You know, those moments when life is too hard, but the thing is, when it's a moment and not a way of life,
Right.
you
Yeah.
can put it in
Don't
perspective,
don't judge it based on that bad day.
right?
This
It's
is
this moment. And
that's all.
and you know that, okay, Swifty, if you don't get up and go in the kitchen, call somebody or put out the garbage, I don't care what you do, something different, and then come on back in a different mindset. You're going to stay in this mindset and go down a spiral. So
Mm.
know yourself well enough to know what you need. And to me, that's effective leadership. It truly
Yeah.
is effective leadership because it's my responsibility to make this happen.
Yep, that's why you're leading, and this
Right?
this ties up to one of your other quotes, which I want because so much to unpack here, and this is awesome in terms of the depth. And but I want to just leave the audience with one final thought around being a powerful person, because you said recently in one of your blogs about how to be a powerful person. So how does this help leaders and entrepreneurs?
Recognizing that a powerful person says nothing about the position you're in.
Right.
When you are a powerful person, and they make the best leaders, when you are a powerful person, there's an awareness of who you are. There's this ability to sit up so tall and I know who I am. I know who I'm not. And I really acknowledge my strengths and my limitations. And I'm perfectly comfortable in all of them.
Mm.
You know, I'm perfectly comfortable. Yeah, I'm working on those parts of me I may not be crazy about. However, I don't hate that. I don't judge me on it. Welcome to humanity.
Yeah.
And that powerful person recognizes that no matter what happens, I can deal with this. And my I can deal with this may mean I will know who to call. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it all myself.
No.
It just
Exactly.
means that no matter what happens, I can deal with this. And then I
Mm.
can take a moment and do a reality check. Look at my life, look at where I've came from, look at where I am. And no matter who we are, we've dealt with everything that has showed up in our lives, or we wouldn't be
Mm.
here, right?
Yes.
So no matter what it is, you can deal with it. Take a deep breath and do that reality check and recognize there is nothing to be frightened of.
Might
There
feel
is
scary, but
it feels scary because
mm,
you've never done it before. And honor that, that I'm not a baby because I'm terrified of this next step. But
mm,
simultaneously, worst case scenario, I'm still going to be okay.
mhm. Yep. We'll get through it.
Knowing that, that's that strength. That's that
Love that.
strength that doesn't look to others for approval. that doesn't look to others to know I'm okay, that doesn't look to others to tell me that I'm going to be all right, that I'll always be lovable. I know that already.
Mm,
I know I can be a pain in the backside on occasion, but I also know that I'm absolutely lovable. I know that there are times I don't have any answers, but I also know that I have the ability to stop long enough to find them.
mm.
You know?
Resonates. I'm
Yeah.
reading Dare to Lead by Brené Brown right now. Just started that actually, and
Wow.
she talks a lot about vulnerable leadership, and
Right.
that resonates a lot with what you're saying there as well.
If you're not vulnerable, you're not honest. And
Mm,
that doesn't mean walking around like a wounded soldier all the time. It simply means that, gee, I don't know about that. Let me time to think about that. I'll get back to you later. That's a really
yeah,
good idea. Let me think about
taking
it.
control.
Right? And the fact that I'm powerfully saying, I don't know that, let me think about that, I'll get back to you later, doesn't say I'm inept. It says, God, she really does take the time to think these things
Mm,
through.
yeah,
She
it's being
really does know what's happening, you know?
yeah being intentional and taking control, so you can then come up with a better result for yourself and everyone else.
And for
Love
everybody else, so that, and I want everybody to win.
it. Mm,
I want all my people that work for me, even my VAs, even my 1099s, I want everybody to win, right? But I don't want them to win more than they do.
mm,
So I'm not going to drag you to success in spite of yourself. If you're as enjoyable as willing to jump in and make a something of your business, I want to help you get there as well. Right?
that's
So it's I want everybody to win with me. It makes it much more fun.
exactly
And
fun.
it's got to be fun.
And this is, and we're having so much fun now, but I need to put a pin in the conversation. Would love to keep going with this and unpack it, but so many good thoughts, and I'll add the show notes to the podcast as well. But as we start to wrap it up, any last thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience, Dorothy?
Yeah, I've 16 years ago I created a leadership self-assessment tool.
Mm,
And it goes into 5 styles of leadership: creative leader, team leader, so forth, visionary leader, and organizational leader. Know your leadership style. When you know what your leadership style is, you end up having far more realistic expectations about you,
mm,
far more realistic expectations about your leadership. And if you know I'm not this kind of leader that's going to, you haven't failed. You just have a different style.
right.
Know what your style is and develop it. And then if you need somebody, I have a client who said, but I hate asking for high prices. Well, then bring in somebody to your team who's very comfortable doing that. You can
Mm,
put together, you decide what that project is going to cost and have this person go and present it. So you simply say, I'm going to go back, I'll create an assessment, I'll have my office call you and do
mm,
that. That's
yes.
perfectly okay. That is
Yeah.
not playing weak and vulnerable and horrible. It's saying it's not my strength.
Yep.
You go
Bubble.
and you work with the client. That's a powerful leader who can say, I'm really good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm going to bring somebody else in to do it.
Yeah. And
And she
taking
said to me,
control.
right,
Mm,
right. And she said to me, but I thought that was weakness. It's not weakness. It's not your strength. And you can spend the next 12 years developing it, but you want the project for next week. Bring in somebody who can do that. And then you're going to make it happen. You've got a stronger team, you
love
know?
it.
So to me, know your style without judgment. Take
So
it.
so
I've got it
important.
free of charge. People are more than welcome to go to my website, askdrdorothy.com. Take it. Recognize your style and honor it without judgment for the things you don't do well. Bring
Mm.
somebody else that does.
Yes. Awesome. Love it. And I was going to then ask about if people wanted to get hold of you or find out more about you. You mentioned your website,
Yeah.
and where else can people get hold of you?
As I said, the website, askdrdorothy.com. Email me, Dorothy at askdrdorothy.com. It's
Perfect.
very
Awesome.
easy. Just give me a call, drop me a line. I would love it. I love bringing this work and this message that I believe every single one of us on this planet is called to leadership.
Yes.
Maybe leadership of a company, maybe leadership of ourselves, maybe leadership of our families. We're all called to leadership. Own it,
Yes.
and then it's a whole lot more fun.
It is. It's, and you can't quite see it off camera here, but I have lead self, lead team, lead work. It starts with leading
Perfect.
yourself. Yes.
Look at how wise you are. You've already got
And I have it there to
it.
remind myself every day because, to your point, we all have control. So yes, Dorothy. This has been awesome. Really enjoyed this conversation, and
Thank
yeah, we'll
you.
have to catch up again and deep dive on more of this. But thank you for your time, and
You're so welcome. Thank you. It's been such a joy.
thank you. We'll chat again soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Hey, bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk About It podcast, brought to you by WeDeliverYourVision.com, the go-to place for delivering your vision and getting traction fast.